Well, Week 8 ended last night with the San Francisco 49ers absolutely walloping the Arizona Cardinals. 24-3 the final in that game. And Arizona, after starting the season 4-0, remember, through 4 weeks, they were the surprise of the league. They've now lost 4 straight games. They seem to have turned into the Cardinals team that we all thought we were going to see heading into this season. They are absolutely lost on offense right now. San Francisco, meanwhile, is 6-2, one of the best teams in the league. And the San Francisco team I saw last night, I know you can't call this team the best team in the league. They just lost 26-3 at home to the Giants a couple of weeks ago. They've also lost on the road in Minnesota. But at times this year, they've looked so dominant, shutting out the New York Jets in New York, beating the Buffalo Bills the next week, 45-3 or something like that. And what we saw last night against the Arizona Cardinals, that San Francisco team that we saw last night, I'm not sure if there's a team in the league that's better. And if Alex Smith plays like that, 18 for 19, set an NFL record for most passing attempts with only 1 incompletion. This is a guy who's generally viewed as the weak link on the team. If he plays like he did last night, there is no team that's going to beat the San Francisco 49ers. We'll see if Smith can continue that play as the season progresses. On to Week 9 now. Several good-looking games on the slate. Want to get to a few of them, starting with the Thursday night game. Not sure if you'd call this a good-looking game. You certainly wouldn't, but notable anyway. Worth mentioning. We'll all be watching it. It's the primetime Thursday night game. So if this game were on Sunday, I'm not sure any of us would be watching it. Kansas City Chiefs are going on the road to take on the San Diego Chargers, 2 teams who appear to be completely disintegrating. Chargers are currently installed as a 9.5-point favorite in this game on BETDAQ, 42.5 the total. What do you make of the Chargers? I mean, I guess they have to be favorites. I guess they have to be favorites by more than a touchdown, even though, it'd be tough for me to back San Diego right now and lay this many points. But the Chiefs are just so bad. But the Chiefs have been this bad for a couple of weeks. I mean, aside from 1 quarter against the New Orleans Saints, the Kansas City Chiefs have been the worst team in the league this year. They've only won 1 game. And again, that 1 game they pulled out was a great 4th quarter comeback against the New Orleans Saints. They were way down at the end of the 3rd quarter in that game. And again, if you removed that 1 quarter from their season this year, they have been absolutely pathetic the rest of the season, including last week, a bad home loss to the Oakland Raiders. So how do you have any faith in the Chiefs? But I tell you what, the Chargers, this is a team that, they start 3-1? I believe they started 3-1. A team that coming into the season I thought was going to be good. I had picked them to win the AFC West. And even as the game before last, it was 3 weeks ago now because the Chargers have had a bye since then, but they lost to Cleveland, an ugly game in their last game. But the game before that, they were up 24-0 at halftime over the Denver Broncos. At that time, the Chargers were a 3-2 team, up 24-0 against their division rival at half. Looked like they were on the road to 4-2. Looked like they were on the road to the favorites in the AFC West. Ever since then, what has happened? San Diego, an epic collapse in the second half of that game. Denver coming back to win the game. And last week, as ugly a performance as you're ever going to see out of this offense, they lose 7-6 on the road to the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland, a 1-win team coming into that game. Absolutely no excuse if you're the San Diego Chargers, because the Browns, they have an average defense at best. Now, I said in our Week 8 recap a couple of days ago, I feel like I've given the Browns defense more credit than most people this year. They were a solid defense last year. They have most of those same pieces returning. So despite the fact they've hovered around 20th in the league in yards allowed all year, I've been saying, this is a pretty good defense. The Browns, tough on defense. In reality, they're an average defense, and if you're the San Diego Chargers in a must-win situation, you absolutely have to be able to muster more than 6 points on a defense like that. They could not do it. Phillip Rivers, at this point, not only is he no longer an elite quarterback. 2 or 3 years ago, you would have said Phillip Rivers was an elite quarterback, maybe one of the 5 or 6 quarterbacks in the league. I don't think he's top half of the league anymore. I mean, in watching his play, so maybe Vincent Jackson was a bigger deal to this offense than we all gave him credit for, but in watching Rivers play, really not only the last couple of weeks, all the way back to last season. Last season and the first half of this season, you look at what Phillip Rivers has done. Is he in the top half of the league in quarterbacks? I mean, I'll throw out a couple of names to you. Names who, coming into this season, or certainly coming into last season, you would have thought, head and shoulders Phillip Rivers is better than those guys. Now what do we think? How about Ryan Fitzpatrick, quarterback for the Buffalo Bills? A guy who I think is viewed as pretty solidly average around the league. How about Matt Hasselbeck, the aging quarterback for the Tennessee Titans? What is Phillip Rivers better than Matt Hasselbeck right now? Not the Matt Hasselbeck I saw Sunday in that close loss to the Indianapolis Colts. Not the Phillip Rivers I saw Sunday in that loss to the Cleveland Browns. I think guys like Ryan Fitzpatrick right now have surpassed Phillip Rivers. There's a lot of other guys. Certainly guys like Joe Flacco, to me, it's not even a question. Guys like that have passed Phillip Rivers. If you start listing quarterbacks in the NFL who are playing better football than Phillip Rivers right now, and I'm not talking about right now like this week. This is a pattern now over the last 20 games or so. Phillip Rivers, not an elite quarterback, not one of the better quarterbacks in the league anymore. But Kansas City has been so bad on defense this year. I mean, the Chargers, if they can't get it together at home against the Chiefs, who, you've been saying the Jacksonville Jaguars are the worst team in the league, because hard to argue with that. Statistically, the Jaguars dead last in nearly every major offensive category anyway. And I believe coming into last week, they were 29th in the league in total defense to go with 32nd in the league in total offense. So the Jags have been the worst team in the league. But you know what? The Jags were just competitive on the road against Green Bay. And the Kansas City Chiefs were absolutely awful against another bad team against the Oakland Raiders. Another bad team in the Oakland Raiders. So I don't know at this point how you say there is one team that is definitively worse than the Kansas City Chiefs. We'll see on Thursday night. The Chargers should be able to blow the Chiefs out. I don't know how anybody has any confidence, though, in the San Diego Chargers after what we've seen over the last couple weeks out of this team. Now, the Chiefs apparently will be going back with Matt Castle at quarterback after Brady Quinn sustained a head injury. Quinn, he might as well call it a career. This guy is a guy who wanted to get a shot. He got a shot in Cleveland and failed, but last couple of years he's been at Denver, sort of wanted to get a shot, did not get a shot. Kyle Orton and Tim Tebow getting a chance to play quarterback on that team. So Quinn gets shipped to Kansas City, finally gets his big shot a couple of weeks ago, goes down there, leads his team to a blowout loss in Tampa Bay. And then last week, after being named the starter over Matt Castle, Quinn can't even last a whole half in that game, leaving with a head injury. Just not meant to be for Brady Quinn as an NFL quarterback, I think. Might be time for him to think about a career in television. Again, we will see Matt Castle on Sunday night and on Thursday night, and Castle will be counted upon to lead that offense because the Chargers, their one strength is run defense. We know Kansas City can run the ball, but San Diego has shown the ability this year to stop the run, so we'll see if Kansas City can attack that Chargers secondary. Again, San Diego minus 9.5 right now, the line on BETDAQ in that game. Let's get to some games involving some better teams. Sunday games. Obviously that San Diego-Kansas City game was a Thursday night game, but a Sunday game I want to talk about. Two real surprise teams. Two teams coming into the season. Me personally, at least, I didn't think either one of these teams were going to win more than 4 or 5 games, but right now they're both sitting with a winning record. Both playoff contenders. I'm talking about the Miami Dolphins and the Indianapolis Colts. Miami visiting Indianapolis on Sunday. Miami installed as a 1-point road favorite in this game, which is a little bit unusual to me. Indianapolis is not getting much respect. Indianapolis were underdogs last week to the Tennessee Titans. In fairness, I backed the Tennessee Titans, so I guess I'm one of those people not giving the Colts respect. Indianapolis has a bad run defense, tough to trust a team that can't stop the run and has trouble running the ball themselves. But you really got to like Andrew Luck. What he's starting to do over these last couple of weeks. Listen, folks. There's been all this hype and all this talk about Robert Griffin III, and so much of it is deserved. Griffin has been great this year leading the Washington Redskins offense. But I think it's clear over the last couple of weeks, still, with all the hype, Andrew Luck's been flying under the radar, with all the talk about Griffin, with all the talk about Ryan Tannehill before this last week, Andrew Luck is the best rookie quarterback in the NFL. He showed that again last week in leading his team from behind. A great fourth quarter performance against the Tennessee Titans. Will he be able to beat the Miami Dolphins? Now, the Dolphins, they're really good in the front seven, but they struggle in the secondary. So this appears to be a good-looking matchup for the Indianapolis Colts. What they do well is pass the ball. What the Dolphins struggle at is stopping the pass. And Miami is going to be without Ryan Tannehill, who's been their starter throughout the year. Tannehill, the rookie, of course, leaving last week with a quadricep injury. Matt Moore going to be the starter for the Miami Dolphins. At least we think early in the week they're saying Matt Moore is going to be the starter. Not sure that's really going to hurt the Dolphins. Moore played well off the bench last week in the Dolphins' victory over the New York Jets. Started all year last year, so Matt Moore, plenty of experience. Expect the offense to keep right on rolling with Moore at the helm. I'm staying far, far away from this game. As I said, Miami a 1-point road favorite in Indianapolis. I'm very curious, very interested to see what's going to happen in this game. But in terms of making a call, what a tough game to call. Both these teams, as I said, much, much better than I thought they were going to be heading into the season. So really, I fear betting against either one of these teams because I fear underestimating either of these teams once again. I guess, sitting here right now, I feel that Miami is the better team, but this game is in Indianapolis, and the matchup looks good for the Colts. As I said, the Colts are going to be able to attack Miami's weakness, which is the secondary. So a 1-point line probably very fair there. This will probably be a very close game. Be keeping a close eye on this game. Hard to believe that one of these teams is going to be 5-3 heading out of this game, and really, obviously it's way too early in the season to be talking about the playoffs in terms of anybody locking anything up, but 5-3 in the AFC right now, you are well on the road to a playoff berth. So a big, big game for both these teams on Sunday in Indianapolis. Another game that's really big for both teams involved is out west. The Seattle Seahawks hosting the Minnesota Vikings. Now, a couple of weeks ago, these two teams were among the two surprises in the NFL. I mean, Arizona, Minnesota, Seattle. 2 weeks ago, you'd have listed those three teams as the three most pleasant surprises in the league. We talked about earlier what has happened to Arizona, lost 4 straight. And for Minnesota or Seattle, the fall hasn't been quite that drastic, or at least that sudden, but both these teams starting to leak oil now, starting to look more like the teams many people were projecting them to be heading into the season. Seattle lost a tough game last week on the road in Detroit. They really controlled that game throughout. They're now 4-4. So despite all the positivity about the Seahawks team throughout this first half of the season, remember, heading into this year, what a lot of people said was, hey, Seattle, they look like the same team they were last year and the year before. A team with a really good defense, a team that can run the ball, a team that cannot pass the football, so a team that's going to end up 7-9 or 8-8. And you know what? Despite all the buzz surrounding Russell Wilson this year, Seattle's rookie quarterback, and Wilson has looked poised, and he's looked really good at times. When you look at the numbers, Seattle near the bottom of the league in every relevant passing statistic. They look like the same team. You hate to say it because, again, there's been so much good seemingly that's gone on with Seattle over the first half of the year. They seem to have turned that corner and become a real good team, a contender, a playoff contender. But when you look at this team right now, objectively, Seahawk fans, take off your silver and blue colored glasses, take a step back, look at this team objectively. Once again, they're 4-4. They've got a really good defense, top 10 in the league in running the football, the bottom in the league in terms of pass yards per game, average per attempt, passing offense, total passing offense. They just can't throw the ball very well. Looks pretty similar to the Seahawks team we saw last year, except for Russell Wilson in place of Tavares Jackson. I know that probably angers a lot of Seattle fans because a lot of people still have high hopes for this season. And this game this Sunday is really big. If Seattle does want to become a playoff contender this year, if they want to be seen as something different than what they've been seen the last couple of years, a mediocre 7-9, 8-8 type team, they absolutely must beat the Minnesota Vikings at home. Now, Seattle is a 5-point favorite in this game, and Seattle has been a much different team at home this year than they have been on the road. Really not this year. Over the last couple of years, Seattle much, much better at home than on the road. They're one of the best home teams in the entire league, yet to lose a game this year at home. But Minnesota's been tough now, and early when I look at this game, 5 points feels like a lot. Minnesota has a really good defense themselves. We expect this to be a relatively low-scoring game. Now, Minnesota's going to have trouble on the road here. Like we said, Seattle, one of the best home teams in the NFL. But, boy, I'd be very careful about laying 5 points in this game. Vikings coming off a bad loss themselves, a home loss to the Tampa Bay Bucks. Minnesota now sitting at 5-3. And the thing I worry about with the Vikings is Christian Ponder. Christian Ponder's play has started to slip here over the last couple of weeks. He really started off the season playing mistake-free football, I believe, through the first 4 games. He did not turn the ball over once. The next 3 games, 2 interceptions per game. Struggled again last week against Tampa Bay. So Christian Ponder might be slowly unraveling. That would be bad news for the Vikings. And Seattle has a really, really good defense. So Ponder is going to have to play a good mistake-free game here. I expect to see a conservative game plan out of the Minnesota Vikings. I think they're going to try to pound Adrian Peterson, get Percy Harvin the ball with a bunch of short screen-type passes, quick slants, try to get it in his hands as quickly as possible. They do not want Christian Ponder to be dropping back there trying to read the defense and throwing the ball downfield, because bad things could happen if that does happen. As I said, right now, very early in the week, but -5, that feels like a big line in this game. I think this will be a close, competitive game. Minnesota going on the road to take on the Seattle Seahawks. Certainly a huge game for both teams. Another game I want to talk about that's going to be, I think, one of the most talked about games of the week. This is a marquee game. Pittsburgh Steelers going on the road to face the New York Giants. Now, the Giants are now 6-2. They look like they might be just as good as they were last year when they won the Super Bowl. Once again, they're doing it with offense. More specifically, they're doing it with the passing game. Eli Manning, listen, and I know all year we've been saying that Eli Manning is now elite. Eli Manning is one of the best 3 or 4 quarterbacks in the league. That's because he is. After he won another Super Bowl last year, there's really no argument. But every week, week after week, we are just reminded of that again and again. I mean, we saw Eli for several years. It wasn't just 2 or 3 years that he was sort of coming into his own. It took him several years. 5, 6 years we were watching this guy play football saying, yeah, he's got a good arm, but, is certainly not as good as his brother. No one would argue that. But sitting here right now, even though Peyton Manning is playing some great, great football himself, boy, Eli Manning does not take a backseat to anybody in the NFL. This guy has developed into a great, great quarterback, and he has a couple of great wide receivers in Hakeem Nicks and Victor Cruz. Pittsburgh's been good on defense this year as usual, especially the last couple of weeks. This Pittsburgh defense, a couple of weeks ago, after they lost on Thursday night to the Tennessee Titans, I think I was on record as saying that I was officially jumping off the Pittsburgh Steelers bandwagon, and I wasn't alone. The Steelers, not only did they lose to the Titans, but a couple of weeks before then, they were shredded on the road in a loss to the Oakland Raiders. The Steelers secondary really looked bad in that game. And so coming into this season, a lot of people were saying the Steelers defense, are they old? Are they sort of past it? It looked like that. It looked like that after they lost to the Tennessee Titans. It looked like, the Steelers are officially not the same team. They officially do not have the same defense that they've had in years past. But the last 2 weeks, has this defense ever responded against 2 top 10 offenses, at least offenses that were top 10 coming into the game against the Steelers? I'm talking about Cincinnati and Washington. The Steelers defense totally suffocated both teams. So sitting here now, the Steelers once again a winning record. They once again look like the Pittsburgh Steelers team that we're used to seeing. Dominant on defense. Ben Roethlisberger in that passing game is what they've relied on offense. I know Jonathan Dwyer, the running back, had a good game last week, and a lot of people I've heard say over the last couple of days that the Steelers are going to start to run the ball more as the year progresses, thinking maybe they've really found something in Jonathan Dwyer. Of course, they've had big injury problems with their other 2 backs, Rashard Mendenhall and Isaac Redman. Coming into the season, new offense coordinator Todd Haley, a lot of people thought he was going to try to pound the ball a lot more, try to run the ball a lot more, because that's what they did in Kansas City, his last coaching stop. Really haven't seen much evidence of that this year, with the exception of the last game. And still, I think against the New York Giants on Sunday, I think we're going to see a pass-first Pittsburgh Steelers offense. They're going to depend on Ben Roethlisberger, and why not? Because when you look at these 2 offenses, Pittsburgh and New York, they look very similar. Both excellent wide receiving cores, both excellent quarterbacks. They can deliver the ball down the field. So I expect an excellent game on Sunday. The Giants currently a 3.5-point favorite on BETDAQ. Hard to bet against the Giants after what we've seen out of them over the last couple of weeks. Well, I guess they did not cover a couple of weeks ago in that win against Washington. They did cover last week against the Dallas Cowboys, just barely. Unfortunate for me, I guess. I was on the Cowboys in that game. And really, with 15 seconds left, those officials put their hands up in the air to signal a touchdown when Dez Bryant caught that ball at the back of the end zone. That would have been a Dallas win, but we know what happened. Dez Bryant's fingers, the tip of his fingers came down out of bounds, so the Giants did win that game. And I like what I've seen out of the Giants. How can you not? They're 6-2, but I don't like what I've seen out of the Giants' defense over the last couple of weeks. And we've seen it over the last couple of years. The Giants' defense, they're great at times, and they are not good at all at times. Seems as though they play when they want to play. And a couple of weeks ago against Washington, the Redskins went up and down the field on them. Last week against Dallas, after the Giants got out to that 23-0 lead, they all of a sudden could not stop the Dallas offense. Dallas offense just went up and down the field, just like Washington the week before. So don't have a lot of faith in this Giants defense right now, which is why I hesitate before fully endorsing them here as home favorites against Pittsburgh. Just not sure they're going to have much success slowing down Ben Roethlisberger and that Steelers passing attack. But then again, as I said, Eli Manning, hey, this is going to be a high-scoring game. Even though the Steelers have a great defense, nobody right now has been able to stop. Nobody is going to stop this New York Giants passing offense. And I'm going to have trouble betting against the Giants at home. We'll analyze this game a little more as the week goes on, but really looking forward to this one. Should be an excellent game. Pittsburgh on the road is a 3.5-point underdog against the New York Giants. Another game I want to talk about, the Sunday night game, Dallas Cowboys going on the road to face the Atlanta Falcons. Atlanta, the last undefeated team in the league. A lot of people thought it was going to end for them last week on the road in Philadelphia, but they dominated the Eagles. They host another team that's quite frankly very similar to Philadelphia, a disappointing NFC East team, a team that appears to be better, or they have the potential to be better than what they've actually been. I'm talking about the Dallas Cowboys. We saw it last week against the Giants. The Cowboys are a team, they're maddening because they look like they can be so good. I mean, they've got some dominators on defense. They've improved in the secondary on defense this year. Tony Romo and that offense, when they get clicking, I mean, they're an explosive offense. They look like they can be as good as any offense in the league, but they just shoot themselves in the foot. Last week, 6 turnovers. It wasn't only last week. I said watching that game last week, and as I said, I was on Dallas last week, so I was rooting for them. They could have won the game. It looked like they had won the game. It looked like they pulled out a miraculous win at the end until that play was reviewed and Des Bryant's fingers, and his fingers did just come down on the out-of-bounds line. But, you know, so you keep renewing your faith in this team, and you keep saying, oh, they have some things, they have some explosiveness, they're just about to put it together, and then they disappoint you. And at some point, it's just what that team is. You know, at some point, they're not a team that as soon as they clean it up, they're going to be really good. They're just a team that can't clean it up. They don't clean it up. Very similar to the Philadelphia Eagles in that respect on offense. They have all the potential in the world, all the explosiveness in the world, but if you turn it over repeatedly, game after game, at some point you're just a team that turns it over. It's just what you are. And Dallas, I want to lean towards Dallas here. I want to like Dallas in this game. Getting 4.5 points on the road in Atlanta. We've seen Atlanta struggle in the last couple of home games. They almost lost their last home game to the Oakland Raiders, and Dallas is certainly better than Oakland. And the Cowboys are just a type of unpredictable team that could surprise you and win this game. But I think after last weekend, backing Philadelphia against the Giants, backing Dallas against the Giants, backing Philadelphia against Atlanta, messing myself up here. I think I've had my fill for a week of backing mediocre teams against better teams. So I do not see myself backing Dallas in this game, but tell you the truth, I'd be hesitant to back Atlanta and lay that 4.5. Atlanta, and I know that I was saying this last week and they were dominant on the road in Philadelphia, but before that game in Philadelphia, their 3 previous games against 3 losing teams, Carolina, Washington, Oakland, they did not look good in any one of those games. 2 of those games were at home, so still don't fully trust the Falcons at home. Should be a fun, exciting game, though. That is the Sunday night game, so a lot of people are going to be tuned into that game. One of the games in the week, no doubt. The last game I want to talk about here, I know we've gone on a little for a while here. This week's preview a little longer than usual, but hey, sometimes I get on a ramble and can't stop, and that's okay. Last game I want to talk about, Monday night. 2 teams that are really desperate, searching for anything right now. Philadelphia Eagles going on the road to face the New Orleans Saints. New Orleans currently installed as a 3.5-point favorite on BETDAQ. Hey, New Orleans defense, we know. Anybody who saw them play on Sunday night against the Denver Broncos, I warned you before that game. And if you didn't know before then, now you know. This defense is so bad. I mean, historically bad right now. How about this? New Orleans, not only are they last in the league in total defense, last in the league in yards allowed, they are last in the league by a wide margin in yards allowed. They're allowing right now 50 more yards per game than any other defense in the league. That's right. Buffalo Bills, who I guess in comparison are just pretty bad. New Orleans is allowing 50 more yards per game than the Bills. They've allowed 400 or more yards of offense in every single game this year. That is absolutely scary. However, I do think the Saints are going to take care of business at home on Monday night against the Philadelphia Eagles. Saints are only laying 3.5 points here. I am fully out on the Philadelphia Eagles now after watching their game last week. They had everything to play for last week. They were coming off a bye at home against the last undefeated team in the league. First game without fired defensive coordinator Juan Castillo. And their defense played their worst game of the year. Their defense was absolutely awful. They stand no chance against this New Orleans offense on Monday night. And even though the Philadelphia offense is going to be able to move it plenty themselves against this terrible New Orleans defense, Philadelphia, just like I said with Dallas, they've shown us what they are. They make mistakes. They shoot themselves in the foot. That's just what they do. And I have no doubt that Michael Vick, this offense is going to account for 450 yards on Monday night, and they're probably going to score 17, 24 points. They probably would score 35 if they didn't turn it over like they're going to, but they're going to. They're going to give it to the Saints a couple of times. They're not going to be able to outscore this New Orleans Saints offense. At least I don't believe they're going to be able to. I do lean towards the Saints on Monday night, minus 3.5 at home against Philadelphia. Does that mean I think the Saints can save their season? They're now 2-5. Absolutely not. A win here would put them at 3-5. They have a tough schedule over the next couple of weeks. I think the New Orleans Saints, I think it's too late for them. I do not believe they will be saving their season, but I do believe they're going to be pulling out a home victory on Monday night over the Philadelphia Eagles. Well, that's it. Those are the games that really caught my eye in just looking at the slate of games this week. Of course, plenty more games. We'll be getting to all those games, be previewing all those games here on BETDAQ NFL. If you haven't checked out the site yet, wholeheartedly encourage you to do so. Everything you'd want if you're an NFL fan, if you like NFL betting, we try to put here on BETDAQ NFL. If you have any comments, suggestions about the site, at BETDAQ NFL is where I can be reached on Twitter, or John, John, at BETDAQNFL.com. Well, hey, until then, until I at least see you on a preview video or maybe on the live stream on Sunday or hear from you on Twitter or my email, I'm John Arnette for BETDAQ NFL.